in the mountains of northern Puebla, shrouded in thick fog that seems to whisper ancient secrets, lies Teziutlan. The name Teziutlan in Nahuatl means place beside the hill where hail falls. It derives from the words texiutl, hail, yotl, a suffix denoting place or property, tepetl, hill, and zintlan, below. In essence, Teziutlan refers to a place near a hill where hail is common. Teziutlan is not just a dot on the map. It's a crossroads where history, spirituality, modernity, and resistance intertwine like roots beneath damp earth. Before the odd conquistadors arrived, this region was part of a vast network of Totonac, Otomi, and Nahua communities who revered the hills, rivers, and skies. Back then, Teziutlan was a hidden sanctuary nestled within the forest. With the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century, transformation began. Evangelization came swiftly, though not without resistance. The town was officially founded in 1552 by Spanish corregidor Diego Ramirez and soon became an administrative and commercial center. The region's abundance of water and fertile soil made it ideal for cultivating fruits such as pears, apples, peaches, plums, and walnuts, all Creole varieties adapted to the cold, rainy climate. In earlier times, it rained even more, and the fog would remain thick almost all day, wrapping the town in its humid, mysterious breath. Its location between Veracruz and Puebla City made it a key point in the commercial routes of eastern Mexico. But beyond numbers and records, Teziutlan grew as a city of the soul. Its people learned to live with the fog, to move across steep hills, to plant crops on mountain slopes, homes stitched into the hillsides, adapted to the rebellious terrain. Its colonial architecture, with narrow streets, stone arcades, and Baroque temples, began to form part of the town's very spirit. Here, the church bells ring deeper, the cold bites differently, and the trees sing with the wind. Every morning, Teziutlan wakes beneath a white veil that gives it a mystical air. It is a city suspended in time, like an unwritten promise, like a story only just beginning to be told. By the mid-16th century, the echoes of conquest had already reached the mountains of northern Puebla. Teziutlan, which until then had been a spiritual and commercial hub between Totonac and Nahua communities, was transformed by the force of empire. In Tez, 1552, Spanish magistrate Diego Ramirez formalized the colonial founding of the town over ancient indigenous settlements, establishing what would become a key administrative outpost in the eastern region of New Spain. The conquistadors arrived, not only with swords but with crosses, decrees, and maps. Catholicism was swiftly imposed over the agrarian and mountain-based spiritualities, and churches began to rise where sacred sites once stood. Teziutlan became a laboratory of syncretism. The solar calendar of the native peoples wove itself into Catholic festivities, and offerings to the dead found their echo in the altars of All Saints' Day. Still, resistance never fully disappeared. Though the names and gods were changed, the sacred hills retained their meaning. The dancers kept moving in circles like living prayers, and the elders continued whispering about the healing power of plants and the sacred respect owed to thunder. In the centuries that followed, Teziutlan grew into an important enclave in the vice-regal network. Its cold, rainy climate and abundance of temperate fruits, pears, apples, peaches, plums, and walnuts, made it ideal for a highland economy based on agriculture. Spanish families who settled in the area began establishing haciendas, organizing local labor through encomienda systems, and later debt peonage. Many indigenous communities were displaced from their ancestral ritual spaces and forced to work under harsh conditions. Yet some managed to survive as guardians of a memory that still pulses in the heart of the town to this day. Architecture, too, began to reflect this mestizo identity. Stone arcades, cobbled streets, pitched roofs, and Baroque churches were built atop older foundations. The city was beginning to write its story in adobe, stone, and faith. Despite the wounds of dispossession, Teziutlan flourished as a resilient city. Popular festivities blended pre-Hispanic dances with Christian processions, and local markets sold candles alongside herbal remedies. That ability to absorb pain and transform it into art, food, or song became one of the deepest markers of the Teziuteco identity. Teziutlan, like many towns nestled in the mountains of eastern Mexico, experienced the country's great national upheavals deeply, though sometimes quietly. During the 19th century, as Mexico sought to define itself following independence from Spain, the mountains of Puebla served as a refuge, a strategic passage, and a battleground for ideals and arms. During the War of Independence, 1810–1821, Teziutlan was a stage for tensions among enlightened Creoles, colonial authorities, and indigenous communities who, though weary of colonial rule, also distrusted the new masters. While no major battles took place here as in other regions, there were insurgent sympathies and participation in logistical support networks. The Northern Sierra provided hideouts, clandestine routes, and supplies to the revolutionary armies. Oral history still preserves stories of Teziutecos who, through their daily trades, wove networks of resistance. With independence secured, Teziutlan became part of a turbulent Mexico. Throughout the 19th century, the town took part in struggles between liberals and conservatives. The Reform period, 1857–1861, brought profound social restructuring. Church properties were confiscated, public spaces secularized, and many old estates redistributed or abandoned. The arrival of the Porfiriato era, 1876–1911, transformed Teziutlan into a key city for modernization projects. Under the banner of order and progress, infrastructure was developed connecting the town to the rest of the country. Roads, telegraphs, but above all, the railroad. In 1905, the narrow-gauge Oriental Teziutlan branch of the Interoceanic Railway was inaugurated, linking the municipality to the national railway network. It was a technical feat and an economic boost. This line transported passengers, agricultural goods like native fruits, and minerals from the region. Operating until 1993, it was Mexico's last narrow-gauge railway and remains vivid in the memory of locals. The old station, built during the Porfiriato, has been restored as the Cultural Railway Center, a space where rusted locomotives tell stories of progress, exile, and reunion. During this period, Teziutlan experienced economic growth. Fruit production expanded, small textile factories emerged, and an educated middle class was consolidated. Normal schools and religious colleges shaped the city's educational rhythm. Young people began migrating to Puebla or Jalapa to study, returning with new ideas and tools that transformed the town's cultural and political life. This era also saw the first signs of progressive thought in the region. Some local publications began discussing ideas about social justice, communal property, and secular education. In an increasingly polarized Mexico, Teziutlan maintained a duality, deeply Catholic and traditional in its rituals and festivities, yet open to new forms of social and economic organization. The urban landscape also changed. New streets were built, commercial arcades erected, and public clocks installed. The city modernized without losing its mountainous essence. The church bells continued to mark the hours, and the fog still wrapped the town like an ancestral guardian. The arrival of the railroad in Teziutlan marked a turning point in the town's history. In 1905, during the height of the Porfiriato era, the narrow-gauge Oriental Teziutlan line was inaugurated as part of the Interoceanic Railway. This rail connection put Teziutlan on Mexico's commercial map, linking it to major trade routes across the highlands and the Gulf of Mexico. It was the last narrow-gauge railway line to operate in the entire country, closing its services in 1993. That train was more than just a machine of iron. It was a serpent of smoke, bringing letters, medicines, dreams, and news. The carriages carried coffee, fruits, textiles, and minerals, produced in Teziutlan to other regions and returned. With new ideas, machines, fashions, and customs, the stations became gathering places where the train's whistle sounded like an anthem of the future. The old station, built from stone and tile during the Porfiriato, is now a railway cultural center. There, the history of the line is displayed, along with route maps, forgotten travelers' belongings, and an old locomotive that still seems to be waiting for its next journey. This space preserves not only the memory of the train, but also an entire century of industrial transition. Railroad modernity brought another surge: mining. In the following decades, one of the key companies was the Teziutlan Copper Company, also known as Ferroaleaciones Teziutlan. This plant was acquired in 1973 by Teziutlán, which integrated it into its industrial network to produce ferroalloys, especially manganese, a vital element for the national industry. Since then, Teziutlán has been one of the region's main employers, becoming part of Teziutlan's economic and social fabric. Mining brought jobs but also challenged the landscape, transforming the inhabitants' relationship with the land. Entire families depended on the mines, and over time, miners' stories became an essential part of Teziutlan's soul. This industrial dream also transformed architecture and urban life. Technical schools were built, new streets opened, and electricians, engineers, and doctors arrived from other regions. Teziutlan became a beacon of opportunity in the mountains. However, this growth was neither uniform nor free of contradictions. Inequality persisted, and many surrounding towns continued living with shortages, resisting oblivion. The legacy of the railroad and mining remains alive, not only in old objects or financial records, but in collective memory. There are still elders who remember the exact time the train passed or the names of the engineers. Children still dream of the stories their grandparents told them about the treasures that came from the heart of the mountain. Teziutlan is not only a land of mist and ancient temples, it is a cradle of men and women who have shaped Mexico's history in politics, art, thought, and sport. Manuel Avila Camacho, the Sierra-born president. Manuel Avila Camacho was born on April 24, 1896, in Teziutlan, Puebla. Son of Manuel Avila Castillo and Eufrosina Camacho Bello, he studied at the Liceo Tezuteco and graduated as an accountant. From a young age, he combined academic rigor with the steady spirit gifted by the mountains, rising to the presidency. In 1940, he led Mexico through World War II and helped establish key institutions like the Mexican Social Security Institute. At the height of his power, he never forgot his roots. Teziutlan, my small homeland, where I forged my character, he often said. Vicente Lombardo Toledano, the voice of Mexican socialism. Vicente Lombardo Toledano, 1894-1968, was a prominent labor leader, political thinker, and Mexico's foremost Marxist. Born in Teziutlan to parents of Spanish-Italian Sephardic descent, he studied at the military college and the National Law School. A central figure in 20th century labor and politics, He led the National Workers' Confederation and founded the Mexican Workers' Confederation, CTM. In 1948, he created the Popular Socialist Party, promoting scientific socialism and workers' rights. His passionate voice made him a vital bridge between Mexico and the global socialist movement. He left a legacy of critical thought and struggle upon his death in 1968. Juan Cordero, pioneer of Mexican muralism, Juan Cordero de Hoyos, 1824-1884. A native of Teziutlan, was one of the great pioneers of Mexican painting. He trained at the Academy of San Carlos and later at the Academy of San Luca in Rome, where he embraced the Nazarene movement's anti-academic spirit. His monumental works include Columbus Before the Catholic Monarchs, 1850, and the Equestrian, portrait of General Santa Anna. In Mexico, he decorated churches such as San Fernando and created the country's first philosophical mural, The Triumph of Science and Industry Over Ignorance and Laziness, a precursor to muralism admired by Diego Rivera. His artistic legacy remains fundamental to Mexican art history. Yolanda Ramirez, the Queen of Mexican tennis. Yolanda del Monte Carmelo Ramirez, 1935-2025, known as Yola Ramirez, was born in Teziutlan, Puebla, and showed exceptional tennis talent from a young age. Representing Mexico internationally, she won 32 titles, including 29 singles championships. She was doubles champion at Roland Garros and Wimbledon finalist in 1961. Named Tennis Player of the Millennium in 1999, she was inducted into the Halls of Fame of Wimbledon, Roland Garros, and Mexican tennis. She passed away in her hometown on March 9, 2025, leaving an indelible legacy as Mexico's greatest tennis player. Clavillazo, the genius of popular humor José Antonio Hipólito Espino Mora, better known as Clavillazo, was born in Teziutlan on August 13, 1910. A legendary comedian of Mexico's golden age of cinema, he began his career in traveling shows before starring in over 30 films starting in 1950. His eccentric character, famous for phrases like pura vida, transcended borders and became a national expression in Costa Rica. Clavillazo's wit and charisma left a lasting mark on Mexican comedy. He died in Mexico City in 1993. A collective impact, these figures paint a spectrum of possibility, from canvas to microphone, from racket to presidential office. Their stories inspire young people walking the halls of the Higher Technological Institute and the Institute of Higher Studies of the Sierra today. They show that from a misty city can emerge bright ideas, impossible tennis shots, brush strokes that immortalize history, and laughter that crosses borders. In Teziutlán, culture is something you can taste. Just visit its market to understand the soul of the people. Every Friday, farmers bring mountain-grown fruit, homemade bread, traditional sweets, and the unforgettable tlayoyos, corn patties, filled with alberjan, cooked the old way, and served with dried chili sauce, cream, and cheese. In the air, the scent of history and resistance lingers. The market is more than trade. It's a mosaic of Nahuatl and Spanish, of rebozos and color. And while Teziutlán honors its roots, it also reinvents its cuisine. Bakeries blend French techniques with indigenous flavors. Young chefs are reviving old recipes in modern eateries and food fairs. Here, life moves without hurry. The mist drifts down rooftops, coffee is sipped while watching the rain, and "good morning" is said with the eyes. Houses have names, not numbers. Memory lives in stories, not in photographs. Those born in Teziutlan learn to love the rain, and many who visit never leave, because some places still know how to feel like home.